Testing. Hi everyone, this is Daniel Gregg speaking. I'm going to do a short video for you here on a passage in Titus. I think it's Titus, let's see here, what's the verse number here? Titus 1:15. It says in the translation, all things are clean in the clean. All things are clean in the clean. Now some translations might say all things are clean to the things, but it really doesn't matter a whole lot. What matters on this verse is how it gets interpreted. So the first question we want to ask is, how would it be interpreted from a Gnostic point of view? So to answer that question, we have to understand how Gnostics think that they are made clean, or how they, maybe it would be more like realize they're clean. So the Gnostic idea was that matter was created by an evil demon, creation, and their idea of becoming spiritually pure was to connect with what they considered their concept of God was a God that didn't do creation, but existed in a spiritually realm above creation and really had nothing to do with, only a tangential connection to creation in the first place. So the Gnostic idea is to connect their soul, or to realize their true spiritual self, which in the Gnostic point of view is eternal, kind of like transmigration of souls. And this overspirit or soul, so to speak, that they want to reconnect with is considered pure and undefiled by the created world. So in the Gnostic worldview, the way you would connect with this soul was by two means. You could connect with it by asceticism, by denying the flesh, trying to cut your connection to physical demands and needs. So this could be done by fasting, vegetarianism, any sort of spiritual exercise which they considered to accomplish the spirit. Now, there's nothing against vegetarianism per se, or fasting in the first place, but they believe that going through these spiritual exercises of self-denial would get them back into the reconnection with the purity of their soul. Okay, and then they wouldn't be the lower creaturely, fleshly self. Okay, at which they believed this oversoul was pure and undefiled and clean. So that's how the Gnostics believed that they would, so to speak, attain nirvana. Okay, idea is in Eastern religion also. Okay, and then there was another class of Gnostics whose way of denying the flesh was to claim that it would have no effect upon them because their spirit was cleansed. Engaging in the flesh would have no effect on them. So these Gnostics were licentious, and they practiced all sorts of immorality, claiming that their spirit was clean and this was only part of the fleshly world. Okay, so that's the Gnostic point of view, and you of course can see how the Gnostics would interpret this verse, all things are clean in the clean, they believing themselves to be clean by this method, therefore they could engage in eating or consuming anything they want, or not only that, but doing anything they want, and they would still remain clean. Okay, so now let's flip over to a scriptural point of view on this. How does one get cleansed in the scriptural point of view? Well, to be cleansed in the scriptural point of view, has to be done by the washing of the word, okay? So that requires two things: forgiveness of sins, repentance, and then turning back to obeying the word. So the word has commandments, okay? So if you obey the commandments, then you are indeed clean. And this is viewed as a process. Whereas in the Gnostic worldview, it's more like realizing your status or realizing your purity. Whereas in the scriptural point of view, it's a process of turning away from sin and learning the word. So of course, when somebody is clean through obeying the word and forgiveness, then they don't engage in those things that would defile them. So therefore, all things that they might do are actually clean to them. They could not engage in the spiritual exercises of the Gnostics, whether vegetarianism or avoiding wine or whatever, and they would be clean. They could avoid the sexual immorality, and they would be clean. So all things that they might do would be clean because they're being cleansed by the word. So this is really Paul's point. Now I'll read you a little bit of commentary here from the footnote in the Good News of Messiah. Let me get my glasses on here, and I'll read you that little commentary and give you a little more insight into this. So, okay, here we go. All things are clean and to the unclean, but to those who have been making themselves defiled and unfaithful, nothing is clean. Okay, so you see, Paul is targeting the Gnostics who are disobeying the word here. And he's saying their conscience is not clean. They're still guilty. Okay. They profess to have been knowing the Almighty. So there you go. The word gnosis is the word knowledge. Okay, and they think they know him because they've reconnected with their quote-unquote eternal soul. Okay, which Yeshua calls the deep things of Satan in the book of Revelation. Okay. And that's actually related to the later doctrine of regeneration, which was taught by Augustine and John Calvin. All right. Okay, so he continues. They profess to have been knowing the Almighty, but by their works they are contradicting themselves, being detestable and disobedient, or unconvinced, actually, is what the Greek word means there, and unapproved for any good work. Okay, so let's get to the footnote here and get down to exactly a little more information here. Okay, all things are clean in the clean. Okay, in an effort to appear spiritual, various strains of Christianity added to the law by forbidding foods that were permitted according to the law. These were commandments of men. All right, so see verse 14. Okay, what does it say in verse 14? Okay, let's see verse 14. One of themselves, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. For this cause be reproving them severely, that they may be healthy in the pledge of faithfulness, not paying attention to Yehudi myths and commandments of men who turn away from the truth. So there you go. They are following the commandments of men. These were the commandments of men. These things are clean in the clean because they do not recognize them as commandments, because they actually learn the word. So you have to learn the word in order to be cleansed, okay? And you have to obey it. Okay? These things are clean in the clean because they do not recognize them as commandments. And therefore the conscience is not defiled to eat them. Okay? The phrase also has the further sense of Romans 14:14 and 20. Okay, so we had a video recently on Romans 14:14. So I'm just following that up with this one, okay? All things, including the accidentally contaminated, are clean in the conscience of the clean, because they are eaten with a clean conscience, and so cannot defile it, the conscience. Now, I'm not saying that a person will become ritually unclean. You can become ritually unclean by accident. And what that basically means is you only have to deal with that when it's revealed, okay? When the accident is revealed, and that's in conjunction with the holy place in the temple. Okay, but we're talking about everyday life here, okay? So a sin of ignorance cannot make the conscience guilty unless the matter is revealed. Okay, so yeah, I just said that. As soon as someone knowingly violates the commandment, Romans 14:14, the conscience is unclean. So now that we understand the context of what Paul was addressing in his time, namely Gnostic perversion of the word and his correction to it, we can understand this text. Thank you for listening. This is Dan Gregg, over and out.